Among all the cases, baggages, and violations that Tinubu is facing at the Presidential Election Petitions Tribunal, the one that was brought by this lady might just be the one that will sack Tinubu 1000%. Yes, the case is so solid that even Tinubu's legal team agreed with the lady. No one took the Allied People's Movement petition seriously, but now, with all the facts laid bare, it is very evident that Tinubu won't survive this. Remember when the hearing started, it was Allied People's Movement's petition that was heard first. It was in the same period that the Supreme Court delivered judgment on Shetima's double nomination. So when the APM legal team came to court, they requested for an adjournment to go and study the Supreme Court judgment. We covered that in one of the episodes. After studying the judgment, they now came back and said, yes, we will continue because the judgment did not cover the particular plea that they pleaded in their petition. Now, let's make an illustration so that everyone will understand what is going on. It is quite different from the double nomination of Shetima. Yes, this one is invalid nomination. Starting on the left, 24th June 2022. That was the day that Masari, the placeholder that Tinubu appointed as his vice presidential candidate, that was the day he withdrew from the candidacy. So counting from that day up till the 14th of July, when Shetima withdrew from his senatorial nomination and took up the vice presidential nomination. So if you count the number of days it took Shetima to take up the vice presidential nomination, it took them a total of 21 days to effect the change, which is in violation of Section 33 of the Electoral Act. Let's take a look at what it says. A political party shall not be allowed to change or substitute its candidate whose name has been submitted under Section 29 of this Act, except in the case of death or withdrawal by the candidate, provided that in the case of such withdrawal or death of a candidate, the political party affected shall, within 14 days of the occurrence of the event, hold a fresh primary election to produce and submit a fresh candidate to the commission for the election concerned. So looking at this section, you can agree that Tinubu's candidacy was not valid at the time of the election. It took them 21 days to effect the change of the vice presidential candidate instead of under 14 days, according to Section 33 of the Electoral Act. So after 14 days, they should have conducted a fresh presidential primary as the law stipulated. But they failed to do so, which has rendered the candidacy of Tinubu invalid. What's very important in this petition is that the respondents failed to challenge or contradict all the evidence that the APM witness tendered. They also did not dispute the date that Masari withdrew from the vice presidential nomination. In fact, in their final address, they said this: as events will turn out, at about 24th June 2022, the fifth respondent, that's Masari, for reasons best known to him, exercised his right to voluntarily withdraw from the race. This, of course, placed a burden on the third respondent, that's Tinubu, to pick another associate or running mate for the election. The lot eventually fell on the fourth respondent, that's Shetima, who was selected by the third respondent as his running mate on 14th July 2022 after serious consultations and deliberations. So as you can see, the case is very solid. The petitioners couldn't counter any evidence that the APM witness submitted. In fact, they agreed with all that she said. Initially, when this case started, people were saying that Masari actually withdrew on the 10th of July, not 24th of June. But this lady came with the affidavit that Masari swore. And going by the contents of the affidavit, it means that the withdrawal he made became effective immediately. When he said these words, that I am no longer interested in being the vice presidential nominee of the All Progressives Congress at the said presidential election scheduled for February 2023, that I hereby wish and I do voluntarily withdraw from being the vice presidential candidate of the party to run alongside as associate of its presidential candidate. Now, let's see the Supreme Court judgment on the double nomination of Shetima. Honorable Justice Okoro, in his own judgment, made these statements. For public policy's sake, I must state that indeed the fourth respondent withdrew from the nomination for Borno Central District on the 6th of July 2022, exhibited as Exhibit APC-1 on page 58 of the Record of Appeal. The political party sent to the INEC same 6th of July 2022 the notice of withdrawal. The political party further sent on the 10th of July 2022 notification of dates for the conduct of fresh primaries for the senatorial district, and the latter letter, Exhibit APC-2 on page 59 of the record, carried the reference of Exhibit APC-1. That is, as at 6th of July 2022, there was no longer nomination of the fourth respondent for Borno Central Senatorial District, and there could not have been double nomination on the 14th of July 2022. What's interesting here is that despite Shettima withdrawing earlier than the date people thought he withdrew on the 6th of July 2022. He only avoided double nomination. He did not avoid the invalid nomination of Tinubu's candidacy because he was still nominated on the 14th of July 2022. So the gap of 21 days still exists. There's nothing they can do. It's all gone now. Some people were actually saying that they backdated this date to avoid the double nomination issue, but they didn't know that they will still fall into the trap of invalid nomination. The APM legal team also supported all their cases with a judicial precedent that was decided in 2010 between Peter Okocha and INEC. Peter Okocha was the governorship candidate in Delta State. Interestingly, the current Chief Justice of Nigeria was among the justices that decided the matter at the Court of Appeal. They held that Peter Okocha was not qualified to have contested the governorship election in Delta State for not having an associate validly sponsored for the election. So this case looks home and dry. Maybe the respondents felt that the matter was already covered in Shettima's double nomination because the Supreme Court ruled in their favor. But it is obviously not so, as you can see. It is quite different. They are asking the court to nullify Tinubu's candidacy because of invalid nomination. He was not duly nominated because it took him more than 14 days to nominate a vice presidential candidate. So the issue of whether Tinubu will be sacked or disqualified is no longer a question. It is about when it will happen. It's going to happen. It's now 100% certain. In concluding their reply, the APM legal team stated that they have proved that Tinubu was not qualified to contest the presidential election on 25th February 2023, as he had no running mate in compliance with Section 142, subsection 1 of the Constitution. They also said that the fifth respondent withdrew as the running mate of the third respondent on 24th of June 2022. The Electoral Act provides 14 days for second and third respondents to replace the fifth respondent. The fifth respondent was replaced by the fourth respondent on the 14th of July 2022. That is 21 days from the day Masari withdrew from the vice presidential nomination, contrary to Section 33 of the Electoral Act 2022. So they proved their case 100%. The whole world is now watching to see how the honorable justices will decide the matter. Thanks for watching.
Thank you.